Okay, so picking up where we left off. You can see the amount of destruction that would be caused by a exoduster. Now that was just one storm. During this time period, there were storms every couple of months. As a result, that is prime farmland that the wind is carrying out to sea. It will never be returned to the earth as one occupied. As a result, in an effort to try to keep or to cut down on the Dust Bowl, to cut down on the exoduster, scientific farming would be attempted to be employed to, instead of just letting a field be tilled and nothing planted, just let it lay fallow. Don't plant anything on it. Enter the picture a man by the name of Sam Bennett. He was a scientific farming instructor. He was somebody who understood the latest innovations in farming, and he worked to get Congress to pass assistance to the farmers to try to cut down on this destruction. He was never able to get a conference with anybody in Congress that would listen to him. Finally, one day he got a phone call from somebody out in Kansas that says a black duster is coming through, and it is going to be here. It's traveling at this time. I've done the math. It will continue, and it will be in Washington, D.C. tomorrow at noon. So he said, okay. He worked as hard as he could to secure a meeting group with members of Congress that faced west, had windows that faced west. And conference begins, the committee meeting begins, and he's meeting with them, and he's kind of, saying, this is the problems that we face, blah, blah, this type of stuff. And he's just wasting time. Then a couple minutes later, somebody starts saying, what's happening outside? And they look outside, and it's new. It should be bright as day. What's happening is, as the black duster is arriving, it is going dark. How dark was it in that video I showed you? It was very dark. People had their lights on. In a few minutes, it went to pitch black. As it went by, Samuel Bennett said, members of Congress, I give you thousands of acres of prime Kansas farm. Needless to say, for the first time in the history of Congress, a bill was introduced and passed in one day. It was the Soil Conservation Domestic Allotment Act. It called for the creation of organizations to teach farmers how to scientifically farm and to employ these methods, money to employ these methods, so that the Dust Bowl is. Now, the Dust Bowl is eventually going to come to an end for two reasons. One, is this scientific farming is going to be applied, and at the same time, the return of the wet seasons. Because the fields are not being dug up, the dirt's not going to be easily lifted by the winds on the plains and the prairies, and ships eastward. Now, the 30s is the time of the crime wave. People that you probably grew up hearing about. Bonnie and Clyde, Machine Gun Kelly, John Dillinger, Babyface Nelson. These people would rob banks in one county and flee to another county. At a time when unemployment was 33%, you could go and knock over a bank and make $22,000, $25,000. And all you had to do was jump in, after robbing a bank, is jump in your car and get across the county line. See, at this time period, Texas was the only state that had a state police force. There was nobody that could pursue armed criminals or any type of criminal across county lines. Once you got across county line, you were free. Once a story about Bonnie and Clyde. Bonnie and Clyde robbed a bank in a nearby county and crossed into the other county where the sheriff greeted them. Said, "Hey guys, what's going on?" Nothing. Robbed a bank. Couldn't do anything because they had not committed a crime in their county. Enter the picture, the Investigation Bureau. Originally, it was a small organization of the federal executive branch that didn't really have much of a purpose. It was chaired or is headed by a man by the name of J. Edgar Hoover, who is going to be the one who is going to revolutionize this organization. When FDR was elected, J. Edgar Hoover was told by the Attorney General that he would be replaced immediately after the Attorney General came back from his honeymoon. The Attorney General was a very old man, and he and his new bride took a train ride to their destination. Sometime during the night, I'll let you perhaps guess, the old man dies. The new person that is placed to be the Attorney General doesn't have the hatred for J. Edgar Hoover as the previous one did. As a result, J. Edgar Hoover is using a new law entitled Lindbergh Law, which makes kidnapping a federal crime. It's going to revolutionize itself and emerge as the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the nation's police force. By doing so, they are going to be able to begin tracking down these criminals. Bonnie and Clyde are going to be caught eventually by a hail of bullets on a trap that was left them by J. Frank Hamer, former Texas Ranger in Louisiana. Knowing that they had a tendency to rob anybody that they found on the side of a road, like their car broke down, he got a report that they were in the area. And he went and left the car on the side of the road while he and his men went into the bushes on the other side. Eventually, Bonnie and Clyde came by, saw this car on the side of the road, decided they were going to go and rob it. As they approached, Hamer and his men let loose a flurry of bullets, slaughtering both Bonnie and Clyde. Thus, their free-willing, feeling days of crime came to an end. J. Frank. Which one? Okay, the one that just came out recently? Yeah. No. There's a one that came out, back in the 30s, no, about 30 years ago. Maybe I'm showing my age, about 60, with Warren, I can't remember, but yeah. They've been out for a long time. Buddy Dunaway played one of them. Warren, his face. All right. So, it's very easy for us as Americans to be very insular, and think that everything happens to us as Americans because we are Americans, and Americans are great because Americans are great. We are Americans, so therefore we're great. Okay? Well, duh. Yeah, I know. But here's the thing. It's not necessarily that way. It's important. I definitely recommend, while you guys are in college, I really recommend, which I would have, that you study abroad one semester, maybe a couple of weeks, what have you. Over the Christmas break, we do a European study abroad program. Lynn does, with the art program. So you get to go over to Italy. It's something that I very much recommend. What's important to remember when we study history and then we are citizens of the world is that we are indeed citizens of the world. And the Great Depression did not just affect the United States, it affected the entire world. So in 1933, an economic conference would be called to be held in London that invited 64 members from nations across the globe. The goal there was to figure out a way that we could fix the myriad of tariffs and laws and trading partnerships, things like that, that were seen to be keeping the Great Depression going on longer than it really should. Now, whether or not the London Economic Conference did anything, it doesn't really matter, because a leading figure there was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And FDR was of the opinion that the institution that needed to be fixed first was the United States. Once the United States was fixed, everything else would fall into place. Now, in the same manner that he used for justifying the closing of banks and then opening big banks first, you remember the reserves, then the smaller banks, or the large banks, then the small banks, because that if the foundation of the banking system was healthy, eventually everything else would come. Using that same theory, FDR said that the number one goal for the United States must be to make sure the United States is on a sure economic footing. And once we got on a sure economic footing as the global economic leader, everybody else would fall into place as well. Okay? Exact same theory, except changing Federal Reserve for the United States. So one of the big demands of the London Economic Conference was that the nations that were not on the gold standard would return the gold standard. Remember, we had gone from the gold standard so that we could devalue our dollar so that our goods were cheap, we could buy things. As a result, to go back onto the gold standard would mean that we would lose 41% of what our dollar was worth. It would buy 41% less goods. So he said no, that would send us back down and would crash our economy again. That is not something we're willing to do. So the London Economic Conference, whatever was intended to occur, does not occur. Does not occur the way it intended. FDR kind of scuttles that. In 1934, we would pass the Johnson Debt Default Act. The Johnson Debt Default Act says that we will no longer make loans to nations who defaulted on their war debts. If you owe us money, we're not going to give you more loans so you can owe us more money. Does that make sense? If I give you $50 and it's a loan and you come back and you say, hey, I need another $50. I said, well, where's my money? Well, I don't have it. Why should I give you more? Well, you should. Can you give them $50? Is that a good decision on your part? No. So the same thing is done here. We are not going to give nations who defaulted on their war debts to us more money, because that is not good. Now, in order to try to cut down on some subversive activity that we are seeing in the United States, we are going to recognize Soviet Russia, the communist nation of Soviet Russia. The reason we do this is to try to appease some of the socialist communist members, groups in our midst. I think if we recognize them, perhaps it won't be so bad. Maybe they will stop, causing problems. In fact, that doesn't have anything to do with it. They continue to cause problems, but we're setting the stage for after World War II, and that is the Cold War. This is a picture of Secretary of State Cordell Hull, one of our most able Secretary of State. He represented us at the London Economic Conference. He's going to be the guy that is going to be meeting in good faith with the Japanese ambassadors when Pearl Harbor is bombed. Talk a little bit more about him as we go on. In 1933, at a conference in Montevideo, don't worry about that, FDR is going to announce what is going to be known as the Good Neighbor Policy. The Good Neighbor Policy is going to continue to pull out United States troops from Latin America. We started this under Hoover. We're going to continue it under FDR. Now, why would we do this? FDR is going to say, this is the Good Neighbor program. You want your neighbors to be good neighbors. Yes? Anybody have any bad neighbors? My neighbors almost hit my wife on a bicycle, pulling my newly born son in a bike carriage. They're about 6 months. They don't hit the brakes until they're in their driveway. One day, the daughter was deciding to look at her iPod instead of driving on the road and hit a mailbox on our street. Needless to say, as soon as it becomes known that a member of their family is coming down our street, live on a cul-de-sac, every single child in the road runs for safety of their house. Okay? They would not want us to behave the way they behave, but yet they behave that way. You want to be a good neighbor. Your neighbors want you to be a good neighbor. You do not want your neighbor coming over to your house in the middle of the night, kicking down your door, armed, and saying, you're going to do as I say, or else I'm going to shoot you. Do you want them to do that? Probably not. I realize some of you live in apartments, and that's normal day stuff for you guys. But what is going to become the good neighbor policy is we're going to try to encourage to behave the way we would like them to behave. Now, it's easy to say that the New Deal is a revolutionary program. It's easy to say that it got us out of the Great Depression. The problem is, it does not. In fact, in about 1937, we see a return to the economic recession, because basically all this is doing is it is using government funds to prop up the economy. It is not until World War II that we leave the Great Depression behind us. Okay? It is easy to say in 2014, everybody loved the New Deal because it was great. But it is also, a statement like that also ignores the fact that a lot of things FDR was doing, people thought were unconstitutional. Now, there's a difference in being thought unconstitutional and being unconstitutional. The difference is that if you think something's unconstitutional, it doesn't really matter unless you are a member of the Supreme Court. Something's declared unconstitutional, as we shall see soon, then it is null and void. The Democrats in 1932 win control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency. The conservatives are not going to be in power. As a result, they fear that FDR is abusing the Constitution, that he has too much authority. Remember the Reciprocal Trade Act discussed last time. What did it do? It allowed FDR to negotiate treaties with other nations. Basically, Congress said, hey, our power is, one of our authorities is to make treaties. We're going to give that to you, Mr. President. We don't want it. Within the Democrat Party, the person who opposed FDR's plan the most is a man by the name of Huey Long. He is a demagogue from Louisiana. Did any of you guys ever see All the King's Men? I think just came out recently with Sean Penn, about 5-6 years ago. No? It's a remake from probably the 50s. And it is the story of a man who comes from very humble beginnings in Louisiana, grows up and becomes governor of the state of Louisiana. It is the story of Huey Long's life. Huey Long was a demagogue. He saw the government as an instrument to get his people anything they needed in order to keep him in office. That's what a demagogue is. Demagogue is somebody who will tell you anything to get you to do what they want, usually for political reasons. Now, Huey Long had a plan called Share the Wealth, and he believed we needed to redistribute the wealth of the wealthy to the poor. He believed that every citizen should be guaranteed by the government a chicken in every pot and a car in every garage. Didn't buy it, the government's going to give it to you. What's the problem there? So what? Well, you don't have the money to buy it, but that's the beauty of it. You could give the money to, you give the people these items. Huh? Do what? Oh, we can generate it. If people are given what they need without working for it, what is the point of working? Back in 2008, I thought it was rather, I don't know if you guys know this, not, we had the auto bailout. Bailed out GM and we bailed out Chrysler. The amount of money that we spent to bail out those companies would have put a new vehicle in every single American driveway. For a nation of 300 million, we spent somewhere like 300 million, spent somewhere like $6 billion bailing them out. And we could have, and I think that would have generated more than anything. Hey, we're going to buy up your surpluses. $30,000 car, every single one of you. That's kind of what he's going for here. He's saying we should provide for the people. But if you provide for the people and they are no longer required to work for it, why would they work? If you don't work, you're not going to generate income. If you don't generate income, you're not creating things, then one of the key components of our economy is not there. Another individual, eventually Huey Long is going to be assassinated at the Indiana Capitol. He's also instrumental in getting LSU off the ground. The Rush Limbaugh of the day was a man by the name of Father Charles Coughlin. Father Charles Coughlin had a humongous radio program. In it, he called for more extreme action by the federal government than what FDR was currently proposing. Known as Radio Priest, and his organization was the National Union for Social Justice. They were very isolationist and anti-Semitic. What is anti-Semitic? Anti-Jew. They were against the Jewish people. We'll talk more about that when we get to Hitler today. But when the war comes, his isolationist stance, and with what we're starting to see kind of do what was going on with the Jewish people in Germany, but we did not know how bad it was. He is going to lose a lot of his support. The final guy is Dr. Francis Townsend. He had what was known as the Townsend Plan. The Townsend Plan called for a revolving fund of $200 billion per year to be given to the elderly. This $200 million would then be used to stimulate the economy. Because if you give old people money, they're probably not working anyway. So you give them money, they buy things, those things are going to need to be replaced, correct? Like if you go and buy a television, what happens? Well, you get rid of them. When I was growing up and I was in high school, I worked at Walmart and I worked in the electronics department. As soon as an item was taken off the shelf, my job was to go over there and put another item on the front of the shelf. Because if it looks like you're out of stock, that looks forward to the customer. It reflects poorly on your company. So you want to have everything in stock all the time. Okay? So if somebody goes and they buy a television, that means another television has to be created, yes, to fill its spot. So if $200 million of television is purchased, $200 million of television are being manufactured, which means people who make $200 million worth of television are getting a paycheck. And if they're getting a paycheck, then they themselves are buying. And the economy is moving. Okay? Problem is, where's that money going to come from? Nobody here is really a major contender to FDR, other than Huey Long, but since they're Democrat, he and FDR are Democrats, it's not even going to get out of the primary. Brings us to the 1936 election. And as you can see, there's a whole lot of red. This is the biggest victory for an American president since 1820, in which James Monroe won re-election during the era of good feeling. Why is it called the era of good feeling? Because only one candidate ran for president, James Monroe. FDR gets over 60% of the popular vote, 98% of the electoral vote. Needless to say, the Democrats running on whether or not the New Deal is a success or a failure. People have employment. They say the New Deal is a success. The Republicans are going to nominate the representative from Kansas. His name is Al Landon, trying to harken back to the good old days when Calvin Coolidge was in the White House. They call him the Kansas Coolidge. Well, obviously, nobody's really interested in whether or not he's the Kansas Coolidge, because what happens? He gets slaughtered. Here's where FDR makes his greatest misstep of his entire political career. When a president wins a vast majority of electoral votes, or popular votes, he is said to have a mandate, a political mandate. When President Bush, W. Bush, won his second term in 2004, he won by 5 million votes. He said, I have a political mandate. I can do this. I can use that political capital to do certain. President Obama won his first term in office. He won by a vast percentage. Shortly thereafter, he comes to loggerheads on the budget. Obama calls a special meeting between Republicans and Democrats to sit down and meet. Each side would get a chance to talk. The Republicans talked, the Democrats talked, and then Obama talked. The Republicans talked, the Democrats talked, and then Obama talked. And the Republicans said, wait a minute. This is supposed to be fair and equal. It's supposed to be the president, it's supposed to be the Democrats, and the Republicans talk. You're supposed to be moderating. You're not supposed to be involved in letting us hear your side. And the President Obama said, listen, you guys need to realize something. I won, you lost. I have the political mandate to do this. And I'm saying this is how it's going to be. So FDR, using a 61% popular vote majority, is going to say, I've been victorious with Congress. Congress does what I say. The executive branch is mine. There's only one area that has stood against me. And that area is the Supreme Court, the third branch of our government. The Supreme Court. See, he does not agree with how the Supreme Court makes decisions. At this time period, there are a majority of Supreme Court justices who are older, over 70, and are not retiring. And they were appointed by conservative Republicans, and as a result, they do not necessarily agree with what FDR is doing. Case in point. 1935, In Schechter Poultry Corporation versus the United States, the Supreme Court ruled that the National Recovery Administration was unconstitutional. You will remember the National Recovery Administration because it is the Blue Eagle. Look for the Blue Eagle. It was an organization that created over 400 codes that stated what was considered ethical in business. And if you didn't do it, you could be prosecuted in a court of law. The Supreme Court says no. Only Congress can make laws. The NRA, by making codes that are enforceable in a court of law, is making laws, and that is a violation of the Constitution. Executive branch entities cannot make laws. What is the executive branch's job? The President, when he takes the oath of office, pledges to dutifully execute all laws passed by Congress. Not all laws passed by the NRA, laws passed by Congress. Declares the NRA unconstitutional. Second, the Louisville Bank versus Radford, 1935. The United States had provided mortgage relief to farmers who could not make their payments. Instead of banks kicking farmers out for not making their payments, if a farmer attempted to make any form of payment to that bank, the federal government said, okay, stay. All right? How many of you own your cars outright? Paid cash, you're done. All right? Okay. How many of you guys are making payments or your parents are making payments on the cars? Okay? All right. So those of you that are making payments on cars, if your parents or you stop making payments on your car, what is going to happen in the middle of the night? Your car is going to get repoed. Why? Because you do not own your car. You are making payments on your car, and when you make that final payment on that car, you will get from your bank the title of ownership for that car. Then it is yours. Okay? Like, I do not own my home yet. I've got another 22 years until I own my home. The problem is the second home. But that's all right, because your home is your best investment. That's my economic advice for it. Cars, down. Home, just go up. Okay. What was happening, the Supreme Court says, is that the banks who are owned by people have the right to that property. And what the federal government was doing by saying that farmer can keep his property and make a penny payment is a violation of the Fifth Amendment right to property. Okay? Because they are not being duly compensated by the government for losing their property. Because they're not getting paid for it. They're not getting compensated in any form or fashion or any viable compensation. And so therefore that is ruled unconstitutional. And the third one is Humphrey's Executor versus the United States. Right after FDR came into office, he decided that he could not work with a couple of the members of the federal treasury that are appointed by the president, that serve 12-year terms, that cannot be removed from these 12-year terms. So he fired them. Okay? To which the Supreme Court said, no, you cannot do this. That is a violation of your power. You do not have that authority. So the Supreme Court is really the only thing standing in the way of FDR being king. I'm not going to say he wanted to be king. He may have liked the idea, but he's not. I'm not going to say he wanted to be king. So what happens is FDR is going to make a huge political misstep. And that political misstep is going to be that he is going to get Congress to introduce what has come to be known as the Court Packing Bill of 1937. The Court Packing Bill provided for assistant justices to the Supreme Court for everybody over the age of 70 that currently was a Supreme Court justice. Okay? So FDR would be able to appoint people to serve on the Supreme Court for every justice that was over the age of 70 that didn't retire. Because obviously they're old. And because they're old, they're old. Because they're old, they're tired. Because they're old and tired, they're tired. Because they're old and tired, they don't know what they're doing. Probably feeble-minded, and they have no clue. Why do we know this? Because they're opposing FDR. Why would anybody in their right mind oppose FDR? Okay, so I rest my case there. So, by doing so, FDR would have the authority, by passing this bill, FDR would have the authority to provide helpers, okay, to Supreme Court justices because they're so old and tired. By old and tired, he means not voting the way I want. Like other justices, okay? Like, let's say I get really old, all right? I know you're thinking, wait a minute, you already are. Thank you. I get really, really old, and Glenn hires somebody to come and teach with me. So I'll say, the court battle, and the other person will tell you everything I just said. Would they say the exact same things I wanted would they? Not necessarily. What it is FDR is trying to influence the members of the makeup of the court to his perspective. See, Supreme Court justices serve until they die, they retire, or they are impeached and removed. And the numbers aren't there to impeach and remove them. So what happens is we're going to provide them helpers. And this cartoon comes out about this time, and it's FDR talking to Harold Ickes of the Public Works Administration that says, hey, I want to do this. How about giving me a grant to do it? Here's the Supreme Court, and there's on both sides of these are new towers that are going to hold all the new chief justices, new justices that FDR is going to appoint. Okay? It's a gross overgeneralization, but it is still true. He didn't get his way, so he's going to try to pack supporters of him and the New Deal. It fails colossally. Still today, there is one institution that the United States people overwhelmingly think very high of, and that is the Supreme Court. President Obama right now has a 30% approval rate. Congress is like in the single digit. Supreme Court, probably about 60 to 70% approval rate. Now, Court Packing Bill of 1937 failed. However, later that same year, the Sumner-McCarran Act is introduced and it's passed. What it does is it provides for justices over the age of 70 the ability to retire and still receive the same amount of pay. Because they're getting the same amount of pay, what's the point of going into work? Retire, you get paid the same amount. I work with a lady, or I did work with a lady. She was a dean, and she was here for 30 years. One day, she was always stressed out. One day she came into my office and she said, I'm so happy. I'm like, why? She said, I'm retired. What? You're like 55. She said, I know. Isn't that awesome? And I said, you're way too young to retire. And she goes, no. We did the numbers. If I retire now, the amount of money I make is the exact amount of money I would make if I stayed here and worked. What's the point? When you reach that point, that's the point of retirement, right? My goal is to make it until I get to that point, and I'm able to make the same amount of money I'm making right now, or 10 years. and then I'll be able to retire. That's the goal, right? No. Now, eventually, FDR is going to be in office. He's going to be elected to 4 terms. And because he's elected to 4 terms, he is going to have the opportunity to appoint 8 justices to the Supreme Court. So this situation is going to fix itself as time goes. We now need to turn our attention to what's going on overseas, because things are not going good. The League of Nations, as we've talked about, is not going to be very effective because it does not have an enforcement mechanism. We are seeing a growth in unfriendly world neighbors. Lenin has died in the Soviet Union, and he's been replaced by Joseph Stalin. Joseph Stalin has bent Russia to his will, and he is invested in an organization called Comintern. Or Communist International. The goal of the Soviet Union is to overthrow every single global country, or every single country on the globe that is not communist, and make it communist, because then you will have a communist utopia. Now, I know what you're saying. Wait a minute. You've told us before, every place that communism has been tried, it has failed. Why would anybody want to do that? Well, because in communism, somebody is in control until that mythical point where there's no reason for the government to exist and it evaporates. Who would be in control of the world until that mythical point comes about? Stalin. Interested in world revolution and domination. In Italy, Benito Mussolini sees the possibility of returning Italy to the grandness of the Roman Empire. He's going to be working with a guy in a few minutes who Mussolini starts out as teaching him how fascism works. Then what's going to happen is the student is going to far surpass the teacher, and the teacher's not going to like that. In Japan, the more liberal tradition and more liberal traditionists, classical learning, involvement in global events, is going to give way. Those individuals have gotten older and they have retired. They are going to be replaced by young, militaristic men who are going to enforce their wills on the Japanese public. And by doing so, they're going to begin creating this code of Bushido, the Ushido. And in Bushido, the greatest gift you can give your nation is your life. And it is of great honor for you to give your life in service to the emperor. What is the point of existence in a Bushido culture? Is to die honored. Who recognizes the artist? Dr. Seuss. 4 Green Eggs and Ham. He was a political cartoonist. Here we have Uncle Sam in his own bed, and you're in their bed. And Uncle Sam saying, what a lucky thing we have a separate bed. And then here in Europe, you have people suffering from the Stalin itch, the Hitleritis, the Blitzpox, Nazi fever, and for fascism. Down here they have the Italian monk. Even the cat is dead. That's bad. And it says, ho-hum, no chance of contagion. We're in separate beds. No way what is going on in Europe is going to affect us as long as we embrace our isolation choice. Now, I don't need to introduce this guy. Every single one of you knows him. He made Mustaches like that go out of style. And many of you think he is the greatest mass murderer in the history of the world. And I will tell you that is wrong. In fact, if we were to put history, the worst mass murderers on the board, he would come in number 3. The only reason he would come in number 3 is because the guy who's there at number 4, we do not know how many people he killed. We just know that he killed a third of his nation's population. First is a guy by the name of Mao Zedong, the communist ruler of China after World War II, and he killed probably, estimates put it between 60 and 80 million of his own people. Stalin is around 40. And this nice guy, he's around 20. He was born April 20th, 1889. Sorry. Oh. He was breastfed until the age of 7.
Oh my God.
Was he homeschooled? He would go home for lunch.
Oh my God.
His father was a postman. He wanted his son to be a postman, but his son wanted to be an artist. He got into a very prestigious school in Vienna for artists, which his art was declared unfit for anything other than postcards. He enlisted. He was born in Austria. He enlisted in the Austrian army in World War I. He would be temporarily blinded during a gas attack. He would be given the Iron Cross. After World War I ended, he became a secret policeman for the new Weimar Republic, Germany. There he was assigned to infiltrate a group known as the German Workers' Party and to make sure that they were not talking about illegal things. There he became very interested in their teachings, and he joined their organization. He became 55th member of their organization, a number that would later be changed to number 5, trying to make it look like he was a major leader. In order to gain popularity amongst the people of Germany, they would change their name from German Workers' Party to the National Socialists, which you know them. You know them. Hello. Okay, maybe you died off. As like it. As they take off the TIONAL and the that part right there, take off that. That's what we have. The Nazi Party. A member of the Nazi Party in 1924, he and his group at a beer hall would orchestrate a failed attempt to overthrow the Weimar Republic. Is known as any failed attempt to overthrow a government is called a coup. But it's known as beer hall. While a speaker has the stage, he jumps on the stage, pushes the speaker up, pulls a revolver and points it in the sky, pulls the trigger, and says, "The revolution has begun." Next morning, the men would march on the capital city of Berlin, where they are arrested. Hitler is convicted and thrown into jail. He is given a 5-year sentence, of which he only serves 1 year. While he is in jail, he has an epiphany and writes down what he calls My Struggle, or Mein Kampf, his book about what is the problem with Germany. The problem with Germany, he says, lays at the feet of one people group, that of the Jews. It is the Jews, he says, that made millions off of loans during World War I to the German people. It is the Jews who control the government. It is the Jews who secretly sold out Germany during World War I. It is the Jews that historically, he says, have been the culprit of all crime and all social unrest. They have never paid the price. In 1932, the Nazi Party is going to run run for office and secure enough votes to win the presidency of Germany. The World War I hero Paul von Hindenburg is going to become the president. But soon after, he becomes ill. He had asked Hitler to take the position of chancellor, which is kind of like prime minister, and then when Hindenburg dies, Hitler would announce that position of presidency and chancellor were one. Turn our attention to Italy for a moment. Italy is going to be the first stop in rearming of Europe. Italy is going to invade Europe in 1935. Italy is going to invade Ethiopia in 1935. Ethiopia is the last independent colony in Africa. Independent area that is not a colony, I should say. Everything else is controlled by either France or England. Not Germany, because Germany lost everything after World War I. Italy wants to make Ethiopia a colony themselves. So he invades. It is no match. Ethiopia has a trained army of 50,000 men, to which Mussolini sends in 250,000. The League of Nations vigorously protests such an action because that is wrong. Because it's wrong, it's bad. Bad is wrong. Because it's wrong, it's bad. But there is nothing that the League of Nations can do to stop them. Because there is nothing that they can do to stop them, Italy says, oh, I'm sorry you feel that way, and they continue on. Now, in order for Italy to invade Ethiopia, they go to the Red Sea. What is right here in Egypt? That is absolutely imperative, going from Mediterranean to Red Sea. Not Israel. Israel's not. I'll give you a hint. Created in 1880, man-made, created one in 1909. Suez Canal, controlled by England. All Great Britain had to do was say, no, you cannot use it, and it would be over. Mussolini thought that they would not allow him to use it, but they did. Cordell Hull calls for an oil embargo on Italy to say you can't use this. You cannot have we're not going to provide oil. Nations are not going to provide oil to you to fuel this economic, to the military machine trying to take over Ethiopia in violation to the League of Nations Charter. To which Italy says, all right, we don't need the League of Nations anyway, we're out. They leave. Congress is going to pass the Neutrality Act of 1936, in which we say, hey, we are out. We are not involved in this. We're not taking sides, and we are not not going to provide loans to nations at war. Okay? We're not going to provide loans to nations at war. Not getting sucked into this like we did in World War I. We're not going to do that. In 1936, fascist forces under General Francisco Franco are going to lead an insurrection against the royalist forces in Spain, against the forces of the king. Franco's forces are going to be secretly provided men and munition from Italy and Germany. This civil war is going to last from 36 to 39. The Soviets are going to provide support for their submarines, their planes to the royalists in Spain. Now, in order for Hitler to provide munitions and men, what must he have done? He must have rearmed. Not tell people he was rearming, but there's nobody really to enforce it. Now, what did I tell you about the Neutrality Act? They would not provide loans to nations at war. Is Spain at war with another nation? Are they? No, they are in the midst of civil war. As a result, it did not apply. Congress is going to pass an arms embargo in 1936 to say we will not ship weaponry outside the United States. Not ship weaponry outside the United States. We are not going to take part in arming these sides. Now, this is sad because what's going to happen is that in Spain, the forces we would have supported, the royalists, are going to be easily defeated because they have no bullets. Because the United States says we are not going to use the weapon, while Germany and Italy has no problem doing it. In 1937, the slow breakup of the peace continues to occur. In 1937, Japan is going to orchestrate an incident on the border with Manchuria and China, known as Mukden. The Japanese had been in Manchuria since 1931. They pretty much conquered it all. Now they wanted China. In order to have a pretense for going to war with China, they arranged for their own men to be killed in a bombing of a train bridge on the border of China and Manchuria. They then say, Japan then says, we have been attacked by the Chinese, and the Second Japanese War begins. Now, they have a reason to retaliate because supposedly the Chinese blew up their men. Who blew up their men? They did. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute. What type of nation would blow up their own men? What did I say a few minutes ago? The greatest gift you can give to your nation is your life. As far as they were concerned, the men they were killing to provide a reason to go in and invade were doing just that. You can see in this picture, League of Nations is carrying a sign that says the honor of nations has laid down so that the Japanese soldiers can walk over them. When the League of Nations protests, it says you cannot do this. This is a violation of the covenant of the League of Nations that you signed. Japan says, oh well, we'll leave. What are they going to do? But the answer is, what are they going to do? Now here, FDR decides to sidestep the Embargo Acts and the Neutrality Act. He secretly gives weaponry to to China, so that they are not fighting against Japan's modern technology and fighting it with World War I weapons. So, right after Hitler came into power, he announced that Germany would no longer be making reparations. They were repudiating the Versailles Treaty, and guess what? They were rearming. In 1936, he says Germany has reached, population of Germany has reached the point that their borders could not hold them, that they were too strained. You will remember that one of the things the Treaty of Versailles did was it created a whole bunch of new nations, nation states. The German people may be in these areas that new states were created. One of these areas is known as the Rhineland. It is this pink area right here between France and Germany. It runs the length of the border and Rhine River. It is a German nationality, but it is a separate state created during the Treaty of Versailles. It was created as a buffer between Germany and France. Because the thought was, if Germany was to rearm and they were to go into battle, they would have to go through the Rhineland before they got to France. It would be a buffer that would provide France the opportunity to mobilize. Okay? So, declaring that Germany needed Lebensraum, on March 4th, 1836, Hitler takes the Rhineland. Overwhelming applause and parade. The people are happy to be back in Germany. This freaks France and Great Britain out. At this time, France has the world's largest army of 1 million soldiers in arms. When this occurs, France goes to England and says, "What are you going to do about this? Look what they've done! Look what they've done! What are you going to do about this?" Great Britain at the time had the world's largest navy. Who had the world's largest army? France. And France, the world's largest army, goes to the world's largest navy and says, "What are you going to do about it? You've got to do something. Show me," let's come up on the board and show me where the ocean is between France and Germany. Somebody show me where that is? Is there one? No. Had France been anybody other than France, they would have just said, "Okay, fine," and marched in. If they would have marched in and invaded Germany, it all would have been. There is no way Hitler's Germany in 1936 could have withstood the French army. Because France says, "What are you going to do? We're not doing anything. What are you going to do?" What happened? Nothing. And what happens when a bully pushes you in school and you don't do anything? Pushes you even harder. And it doesn't happen, you don't do anything then. What happens? He continues to push you. Why you stand up to a bully the first time. 2 years later, Hitler invites Prime Minister of Austria to come to Germany to his Eagle's Nest Mountain Resort. There, he says, "Hey, how are you doing? It's good to see you. I have you here. I need you to sign this document." Sign it. Well, it doesn't matter. You just need to sign it. Are you going to sign it? My goodness, don't really sign it. Are you thinking about signing it?
She's like, yeah, I could.
I'm kind of intimidating. I'm not intimidated. Okay. So here's the deal. You need to sign it. Read it. It says, I, the Austrian Prime Minister, do recognize that Austria has been annexed by Germany and is now part of the German state. Okay? You want to do that? No? You need to sign it. I feel bad about what I'm going to do next. I really do. Okay? Don't get mad when I'm going to do something that's going to scare you, okay? All right? Are you ready? I should have said that. But she's like deer in the headlights. It's kind of frightening. Okay? You going to sign it? Say, I can't do it. Sign it! Now you're going to sign it?
Yeah.
Okay? Declaring Anschluss, Hitler annexes Austria on March 12, 1938. Now this freaks out France and Great Britain even more. And the French Prime Minister, Edouard Daladier, don't worry about that, and the British Prime Minister, Neville Chamberlain, go and they meet with Hitler. They go and they meet with Hitler and they say, Hitler, you got to stop doing it, okay? Bad things. Don't stop doing it. Bad things are going to happen. We don't want bad things to happen because bad things could happen. Okay? So you're going to stop doing it, right? Yeah. Sure. So, okay, sign this piece of paper that says we're going to we'll do it anyway. Do it anyway. Okay, do it anyway. You don't really have to sign this. Just sign it. Okay? All right, so she signed it. So now I am Neville Chamberlain, and I fly back to London, and I declare a big victory on pictures and stuff like that. I declare peace in our time from the Munich conference. I have peace in our time. Hitler isn't going to do anything ever again. It's going to be great. I've got peace in our time. To which? Austria. Hitler takes the Sudetenland. Just because he signed it doesn't mean he cares what he signed. If you have no intention of honoring something you signed on an agreement, what is your signature worth? So he reoccupies the Sudetenland, which was just this little area around Czechoslovakia, very, very similar to what is going on in Ukraine right now in Russia, in which Russians went in and reoccupied Russian Crimea. The only reason it was Russian Crimea is because they killed off all the people that were there in the first place to settle Russians there. Right? So they went in to protect the Russian nation. Same thing Hitler said here. So on September 30th, 1938, he retakes the Sudetenland. Then in 1939, he takes Czechoslovakia and the port of Memel up here. Now, what was the major problem that Germany had in World War I? What really hurt them more than anything else? Their chances of victory. What did they do that really hurt them? They ended up fighting a two-front war. They fought Russia in the east, and they fought the Allies in France in the west. So Hitler says, that's not going to happen this time. We're not going to do that. We're going to sign a non-aggression pact with the Soviets that say we are not going to fight one another. We're buddies. We're pals, right? We're good buddies. We hang out. We're going to go kill some people together afterward. All right? Great. Let's go find some Jews to kill. Awesome. Okay? So, you guys know I'm joking, but Stalin doesn't. So, what happens is they both sign agreements and they're kind of like, okay, all right, yeah, we're buddies. But both sides are about ready to attack each other. And they're just waiting for the right. Now, World War II starts in Poland. Starts on Poland on September 1st, 1939. Germany had studied total warfare. And total warfare involves warfare amongst civilians, too, citizens of a nation. The way you wage warfare amongst nations and amongst citizens is you make those citizens work for you. So if I'm invading a nation, I want those people out of their houses and in the streets flogging reinforcements coming from somewhere else. Because those people are between me invading and the reinforcements. It's going to take longer for them to get their reinforcements to the front line. So therefore, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure every single one of those people in the area I am attacking are fleeing towards the reinforcements. Now, how do you get people to do things that you do not like? Make them do it, or you scare them to death. You get their instincts to fly. I saw Divergent last night. Who's seen Divergent? Nobody saw Divergent? Oh my gosh, just get a whole team off. Okay, went with my daughter. So basically, there's this whole thing where you have to conquer your fears. And everybody has fears, and if that fear occurs, it's probably going to freak you out. Okay? One of the old purposes. Here's the deal. Every aspect of the German invasion into Poland was designed to scare the Polish people. The Polish people would flee from their houses only to be attacked by dive bombers, planes armed with bombs that come in at a dive with an air horn attached, with an air-powered horn that let out this ear-pinching squeal that you knew if that sound was coming, there was a plane that's about ready to drop a bomb on you. It only took one of those to actually see one of those bombs landing to realize what was going on. So people fled. It's called Schrecklichkeit, frightfulness, scaring the people out of their homes into the street and making it harder for Poland to attack. Now, why is Poland the last one to be attacked? The reason they're the last one to be attacked is because they have assurances from England and France that if Germany attacks Poland, guess who's going to respond? England and France will declare war on Germany. So once that happens, England and France declare war on Germany on September 3rd. All right, that's where we'll end for the day. We'll pick up next week.